Remember to like the Brenton On Tour Coffee Cast, my friends, over at Apple Podcasts. Have a listen over at Spotify. Share it, like it, tag me as much as you can. Let's spread it around. Let's get those listens up. Let's get those downloads up. I'm going to give you a brand new Leverpresso from leverpresso.com. Portable espresso maker. You can take it to work. You can take it to the rink. You can take it anywhere. It's really cool. It's portable. It's on the go. The contest continues. Keep sharing, keep liking, all of it. And now, Jeremy Gursey from J. Gursey Coffee is going to tell a story about how he invaded Hollywood and how he became the barista to the stars.
Oh, no, I can't drink coffee late at night. It keeps me up.
Fresh pot!
You're listening to the Brenton On Tour Coffee Cast. Brought to you by things that make coffee, people who make coffee, people who love coffee, and maybe just coffee. You have no idea who he is, but he's on the search for the best coffee in the world. So pour a cup, grab a seat on the john, and maybe, just maybe, you'll stop drinking shitty coffee. It's the Brenton On Tour Coffee Cast with your host, that guy you don't know. Here's BD.
Howdy, friends. Welcome to the brand new episode of the Brenton On Tour Coffee Cast. I'm hanging out in Costa Mesa, California with my good buddy Jeremy Gursey. How are you, man?
I'm excellent.
Jeremy Gursey, barista to the stars. Is that how they refer to you as?
Yes, occasionally.
We've been chilling out, testing his coffee at, what hotel are we at?
We are at the Avenue of the Arts, Costa Mesa.
They host your coffee, correct?
Yes, they do. Yeah.
What other hotels do you have? Is it just these guys?
No, we do quite a few. We do the Palms in Vegas, Red Rock Casino, SLS, which is now the Sahara. We do SLS in Miami, South Beach, Brickell. We do, I'm blank.
There's so many of them.
Too many to count. To count. So
I'm hanging out on a day off, and I was told, I'm on the search for the best coffee in the world, as you are aware, and I've been touring with your buddy Ray from Korn.
Love me some Ray.
And you've made a Korn Koffee brand for them amongst all the other brands that you've created around the world. And Ray has been propping you up pretty great, talking about the journey that you were on. And I thought, I'm in LA. Let's see if we can get together, talk a bit of coffee, talk a bit about your journey, and film a bit, which we did earlier for the YouTube channel that's coming out. We filmed a little bit in the hotel and had a great bit of sampling there. It was really awesome. And now we're just chilling out in a restaurant. We're just kind of hanging. Drinking coffee, more coffee. I think this is probably number 12 now, so I'm ready to run a marathon.
I'm jacked. I'm ready. Let's do this.
So anyways, to our, I think we're from 9 listeners, we're up to 45 now.
Okay.
So let's get to our 45 listeners, and why don't you tell them a little bit about J. Gursey, man? Like, I mean, how did this thing get rolling for you, man?
I'm going to give you the abbreviated version,
sure.
But basically started out of my parents' garage with $100. Was working at a coffee place. This was in the early 90s, 93. And back then, there was only about 5 coffee beans and about 12 Starbucks in Los Angeles.
What area of Los Angeles?
This is in L.A. There was only 12 Starbucks in all of L.A. That's how, when I got in, that was at the forefront of the coffee industry. So imagine now there's hundreds of Starbucks and hundreds of coffee beans and stump towns and all that fun stuff.
So you thought more?
I thought, why not build a coffee experience and bring it to film sets? And it turned out I was the first person to ever do that. So when I came along, it was styrofoam cups and U-Ban, and I had this idea of coffee on film, high-end coffee, started to study chemistry and roasting and all that fun stuff, and kind of built my bedroom, looked like Breaking Bad, all these contraptions and this, and I had coffee drips, and that's basically how I started, though.
Nobody was bringing coffee to movie sets.
No, it was styrofoam cups, if you can remember back then. Internet was dial-up. And
I remember that part.
Cell phones were like little suitcases that were about $4 a minute, and she carried around little briefcases.
Like in Michael Douglas in Wall Street.
Yes, exactly.
You needed a second compartment in your car just for that phone.
That's right.
So you come up with this in your brain. You're like, listen, I think I want to start supplying to movie sets. So hey, like any dreamer in the world, or like anything, any idea, there's no bad ideas as far as I'm concerned in life. And obviously you've proven this with this approach that you took. How do you, and without giving away secrets, because we want you to be exclusive on this, but how do you sit in your bedroom? You have the contraptions, you're designing out coffee, you're doing all these really cool things, and then you say, I want to bring this to movie sets. And then how do you bring it to a movie set and then launch it from there? How do you break that wall down when they've been drinking shite for 50 years up to that point?
It was a hard pitch at first, but I kind of feel I've always had a sales approach, and I would approach companies and say, listen, you've got nothing to lose by trying me. If just try me once, if you don't like me, you never have to use me again. And it worked. I got in. My customer where I worked, I was working at a coffee place when I started, and they didn't do anything fancy, just basic espressos and lattes. And a casting director customer came in every day, and I told him my idea, and he was my first customer. He's the one that actually hired me first and tried me out, and he was casting a movie called Ed Wood with Johnny Depp, and that was my first contract I ever had.
So the first movie where your coffee, which was it branded at this point, or was this just your own beans that you created?
It was branded Mocha Kiss at this point. When I started, I would do ice blended. Started with cold brews and ice blended mochas, and every mocha had peeled Hershey Kisses on top. So it was Mocha Kiss.
So Mocha Kiss.
Yes.
Did Gene Simmons find out and try to come and take it from you?
No.
He didn't?
No.
So you got away with that one. There's
I got away.
Mocha, but you had to put the mocha in front of it, but then Gene doesn't come along and say, I think you owe me 10 cents a bean.
He may come after me now after hearing this podcast.
Well, but the Mocha Kiss doesn't exist now.
This is true.
This is true. So, okay, so the Mocha Kiss, so you bring it to Ed Wood. What's the first thing that happens? You get on site and then you bring it to the masses. And this is you're making coffee for the crew, or is it just strictly for the actors?
My first contract was with the production office for the office people. They loved it. This is my first day in business. I went to the casting director's office. He hired me. He had only 8 people in his office. Then he sent me as a gift to the production office. I'd made about 40 drinks there, and they were like, I'm a kid at this point. I'm 19, skinny little scrawny kid. And they go, hey, kid, can you come back tomorrow to the set? We're going to give you a map, and we'd like you to serve these on set. So that was my first day of work. I made in 2 hours what I made the entire week working at the coffee place.
Were you charging per cup, or were you just charging
per cup?
You were charging per cup.
At that point, yeah.
And so did you find that once you started with that, all of a sudden it was like, whoa, I need to add 45 people and I need to be on every movie set? Well, what was the deal there?
It was pretty bizarre, actually. I ended up getting a pager like within a couple of days of starting the business. And they basically, I would be sitting in class because I'm in college at the time, and like a drug dealer, man, my pager would go off and word just spread. I didn't do anything. Somebody on Ed Wood knew someone on Nightmare on Elm Street Part 7, and I would get these calls, hey, are you the kid that jacks everyone up on caffeine? We need you to come. And then what happened is I met a guy who was a big catering guy, and he said, screw this, I'm not going to have you charge per cup. I'm going to give you a flat fee. And that started the whole Netflix approach of it, where it's all you can drink. And I pioneered the all you can drink for a flat fee based on the size of the crew and stuff. And now that's pretty much the standard of coffee catering.
So then from there, it's taken off. It's crazy. You're on movie sets. It's like, did you have to add people? Was it just you? Did we have to kind of like figure out what your actual plan was going to be moving forward to sustain it? Or was it just one of those things where you just kind of going with it and the work was flowing in and you just kind of kept going with it?
You know, it was a very interesting process because it started obviously out of my parents' garage, and it started with just me. My second week in business, I hired my best friend. I gave him a pager. I gave him a duplicate of everything I had, and he started to go out, and I couldn't handle all the calls, so he would start taking half my calls. And that was my second week in business. Come like a month later, it was just nonstop. Nobody was doing what we were doing. And it became like a phenomenon. And then what really got me like in with productions was productions would want to hire us on a Friday night Now I'm going to give a major trade secret away here.
Be careful now. Are you sure? We can edit it out with like some kind of like a coffee sound. We'll go.
So I would book up on a Friday night, and I didn't have didn't have enough employees. I didn't have enough coffee bars. And then what happened was I started to make deals with the different TV shows, whatever they were, ER, Seinfeld, Gilmore Girls. And I asked for a contract. They would all give me purchase orders and pay for me to be there once a week. And so what I did is, in trade for that, I automatically gave them a spot. So I assigned somebody to their account, and I was doing 50 shows a week, like 50 film and television shows a week on average. It became so big. We would have these big silver refrigerators in our commissary, and I would have the truck from the dairy like pull up and just unload gallons and gallons of milk. Then we were roasting coffee, and
were you roasting on site?
We were roasting at our commissary. Originally, I studied roasting under a master roaster when I first launched the company, and I didn't know how to roast, and I became an apprentice, and he took me under his wing, and he kind of taught me how to taste, how to source, how to buy coffee. He was really instrumental in letting me use his credit, because I'm 19 years old, right out of high school. I didn't have credit. So I would piggyback his green coffee orders, and he would let me put bags on there. So I would get net 30 days, and that was a big help. Like I credit him for really giving me my start.
It's unbelievable to me that was never visited before, because if I know what the demands of some rock stars can be,
right?
I mean, I've had to replace bathrooms in arenas. I've had to replace full kitchens, with brand new kitchens with brand new gear, you name it. So I gotta think, the quote unquote movie star demands. These people have had some of the best coffee in the world coming into their movie. And to the fact that no one was bringing this service already is unbelievable to me. And this is how all the great stories start. There's always like, okay, let's give it a go. Yeah. And then you launch.
It was pretty much from the start. And that was the thing. I wasn't even in my 20s yet. I'm still in my teens when this happened. And it just took off. It was crazy. And then what happened is, when I developed my own flavor of coffee, I was working on the movie Jerry Maguire, and halfway through the movie, Tom Cruise's assistant comes over and says, hey, Tom's a huge fan of your coffee. He loves what you're doing. He loves your passion behind the coffee. And I was always passionate about it. I could be serving somebody else's coffee. It didn't matter. It was all about execution and passion of what you're doing. And I always enjoy what I do, or I make what I do enjoyable. It's not work when you do that. So it's one of my mantras. And his assistant said, how would you feel about coming on the road with us? Would you, be part of our team? And I said, what does that mean? And he goes, well, we have a personal chef. We have a nutritionist. We have a personal trainer. We have 2 security guards. We have 2 assistants. We have a full-time hair person. Now we would like a full-time personal barista / coffee chef. I said, well, what do I charge for that? And he goes, go talk to the chef, see what he charges. You charge the same. So I meet with his chef. He takes me aside. He shows me his contract, says, this is my deal memo. I didn't even know what the hell a deal memo was. I sign a non-disclosure. I sign the deal memo, and I'm off to work. And
so you showed him the coffee then?
I showed him the coffee.
Instead of showing him the money.
He showed me the money. I showed him the coffee.
He sounds like a real nice guy.
Super nice guy.
That's great. And of course, then the word gets out.
Yeah.
Word gets out that you're doing this, and
it was pretty.
Before the internet, really.
It was pretty interesting, because from him I met Cameron Diaz on Vanilla Sky. That was one of the next movies I worked on, and she came up to me herself and said, "Hey, I really love what Tom's doing. How would you feel about coming on the road with us?" And I said, I would love to. So what I did is I took on an apprentice myself. Like I was an apprentice for the roaster. So I said, and I need an apprentice for myself. And between me and him, we took on Cameron and Tom together, and we would alternate, like who's working for who and all that. So,
and then it goes, and then I'm guessing it just kind of kept going.
From there, I worked for Spielberg. Tom had introduced me to Steven Spielberg, and I worked for him for a couple movies. And then I worked with Tom and Cameron for about 12 years. But the beautiful thing about this is it allowed me to get the money to build my own roastery. Because in the beginning, I was using my my mentor's roaster. So when I got my own money and I would invest it back into business. I took a roasting facility, I built it out, and bought a roaster, and then I was able to really grow the business because of them.
You're doing it out of LA. I know that you've got the new place, which we'll touch on in a little bit, in Vegas. But was this always an LA thing, or did you have to kind of go outside of town for this, or was it? No. Did you start it here?
No, it was in LA. We were in the West Hollywood area. We started out there. And basically from there, what I was also going to tell you is we were on the Sony lot, and we had a cart, so to say, at Men in Black. We had one at Jerry Maguire. Then we did the show Married with Children. Next thing you know, we started to brand ourselves. Executives would pull up in their cars. They'd walk to their offices, and then they would see Mocha Kiss. And then I always told my employees, you never know who anybody is. So if anyone comes up for a drink, you give it to them, no questions asked. You never know if someone's the president or the janitor. And sure enough, we gave it to the right person, and they were a huge fan of our coffee. And they said, hey, kid, you got to have a store here. And next thing you know, we opened a store at Sony, and that turned into 3 more stores. And then from there, we went into Warner Hollywood, which is now The Lot. And then we went into NBC Universal. Then we went into Paramount. And at one time, we had 12 stores on film lots, like retail coffee stores that you walk into, like a Starbucks on The Lot.
On The Lot. So then it's pay as you go. It's not like Sony's not paying you a pile of money to just make unlimited coffee. It's basically, we're set up. It's $5 a cup or $4 a cup or whatever the hell it is. But it's its own store. It's its own thing within The Lot.
What we noticed is this was the second wave of coffee, and we noticed that Starbucks and Coffee Bean, who were the main coffee people in Los Angeles at that time, they were so focused on opening on every single corner that they were forgetting niche markets. So we saw a niche in the movie industry with film studios because they have about 5,000 employees on the campuses. And so we basically created that culture, that coffee culture of, what Starbucks was on the corner on The Lot. So
there's so many, great stories of the rise of business. Mm-hmm. There's so many great stories that everyone wants to hear about the big corporations and all these different things. But to me, the idea that big corporation would forget about the little guy and, the niche market of there's 1,000 people on the Sony lot at any given time, either working or making a movie or something, and they need to drink coffee.
That's right.
Or they need to drink, whatever it's going to be. Is this where the Mocha Joe, is this where the Curb Your Enthusiasm thing comes from? Because I want to hear this story. I just did a podcast, an episode with Todd Kearns, who plays bass with Slash. And we talked in great length about Seinfeld because I had wrote an article on a site that I blog for up in Toronto called DeanBlundell.com. And it's they wanted me to start writing about coffee and about my coffee journey around the world. And I wrote an article about the top 5 scenes in Seinfeld history to celebrate the 30th anniversary. So Todd and I spent the whole episode just talking about Seinfeld, but we were also huge Curb Your Enthusiasm fans. And I'm curious as to how that came about, because that was a great part of the show to me, is when Larry's on about Java Joe and all that stuff. So,
well, this is actually a very interesting story. I was doing movie after movie after movie. Could not break into television with my coffee. Usually you're in TV, you can't break into film. I'm doing film after film. I did Dusk Till Dawn. I was Men in Black, Jerry Maguire. Didn't have Married with Children at that time. But couldn't get a break in television. And so I was in film school. That's what I studied in school. And I basically went through the credits of 2 TV shows that I knew shot on the same lot. One was a show called Hearts of Fire, which starred the late John Ritter and Billy Bob Thornton. And the other one was Seinfeld. I knew they shot on the same lot. And so what I did is, more trade secrets here.
You mean they didn't shoot in New York City? What?
No, Hollywood. Hollywood, actually Studio City. So what I did is I scanned the credits. I took the producer's name out of the credits and I cold called the production office. I asked to speak to the producer of Hearts of Fire, and I scanned the credits of Seinfeld, and I knew I saw who the producer was of that show. And I used her name, and I randomly said, I called up this guy. He got on the phone with me. I said, hey, is this Doug Jackson? Yes, it is. I go, my name's Jeremy. I have this company, Mocha Kiss. We do all the coffee on Seinfeld. It was a complete lie. I didn't know anybody on Seinfeld. I said, yeah, Nancy Sprouse. She's the producer. She told me you would be interested. Complete BS. Was all a lie. He goes, oh yeah, I know who Nancy is. I don't know her, but I know who she is. Well, if you're good enough for Seinfeld, we'll try you out and we'll give you a shot. And if we don't like you, we'll never use you again. So that got me on the actual film lot. And then I got on Hearts of Fire. And then what did I do? I took drinks over, found Nancy Sprouse. She didn't actually drink coffee, but I gave her associates coffee. And they said, wow, if you're good enough for Hearts of Fire, we'll try you out. They tried me, and that's how I got on Seinfeld. And from there, I started to work on the writer's room, and I would actually sit in writers' meetings while they're writing episodes of Seinfeld. They literally used to open up the USA Today. Larry David was at the head of the table. You had all the writers, and I would sit there making them coffees, listening to how they write these amazing shows like Lobster Hands, The Bizarro. I mean, all these episodes that are iconic. And he used to go, hey, Mocha Joe, because he knew I was Mocha Kiss, and he used to call me Joe. So he put the two names together, and next thing you know, I'm Mocha Joe. And then he would start interacting with me on set, and then, behind the scenes, and I would be carrying a tray of coffee. He'd come and, see me outside. What you got there, Mocha Joe? What? And he's like looking at everything, and that's how it started. And then he actually left the show in the final season, and then I went from I've worked the last 3 seasons of the show. I mean, iconic episodes, like the one where the shower, the giant, he gets the giant shower thing. It's like an elephant shower.
Totally.
Like, I remember I was there when they shot that, and the thing explodes.
What's your favorite Seinfeld episode?
Lobster Hands. Bizarro is the name of the episode.
Yeah, Bizarro.
Yeah.
Man Hands.
Man Hands.
Yeah,
Man Hands.
Man
That
Hands.
was it. Man Hands. Yeah. That was my favorite by far.
I love that. Yeah.
But there's some such classic episodes there. And it was so interesting to see them now 30 years later, like you said, on television. When I was actually there while they were filming them, to see them being written. I was there when they were writing them, and there when they were blocking, and then when they were filming.
One of the things that I'm always afraid about is knowing too much information on the inside. Now, the coffee journey, I don't mind knowing all of it. I'm learning as I go. I'm learning from people like you. I'm learning from different shops around the world that I'm going to. I'm trying to take my listeners and viewers and stuff on a journey to learn about it instead of coming at it from an approach that I know everything, which I don't. Same with movies, though. I would be paranoid about getting on a movie set and seeing how they shot this movie, and then the next time I see it, I'm like, well, they used this, or they used that, and they used this, and they used the Johnson camera, whatever the hell that is, whatever to take away the experience of being the viewer. So, did you find that now that you've been a part of those and you're in the writing room for those, that you obviously when that episode comes on, you're like, obviously you were standing in the Seinfeld kitchen, or you were standing here, or you're standing there, so it's a different feeling for you. But has it changed your experience about watching that show, knowing that, I guess, unlike me watching Kenny Rogers Roasters and just appreciating it, you were actually looking at it and going, well, when that red light came in, I just served Larry like a cappuccino.
I remember it. That's how it was. It was crazy. It doesn't, I was going to film school, so I was just so fascinated about shots and how things were framed, and it didn't spoil it for me, though.
Not at all.
No. I'll tell you one interesting, this is a little interesting fact. Phil Hartman, who was, killed by his wife.
Yeah, the late Phil was such a genius.
I was working on news radio, and I think it was the night he was killed, I remember serving him a cappuccino on set and talking with him and everything. And then that night is when everything went down. So that was kind of a fascinating experience.
The history of life.
Yes.
That's
I kind of feel like Forrest Gump, you know? Like he seems to have been everywhere through history.
Life's like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're going to get. Life's like coffee. I've always felt like coffee is a metaphor for life. And I've touched on that in past episodes where basically it brings us all together. I mean, it brought us together organically through another thing. And I'm only a year and a half into my journey. So for me, it's amazing to be able to sit and have these conversations and learn these things about people, and it's all around coffee. And I guess it would be the same people on a wine tour, or they're on a whiskey tour, or they're on whatever they're on. This particular podcast is about coffee and the journey. Your journey is building and continues to build. And so you go from movies, you go from TV. Now you've done what? Where do you go? Now you start opening your shop, or now you decide, okay, I'm branding this thing out, or I'm going to start making individual brands. What was the next phase for you?
It's really interesting how you just described like your journey. And so for me, my journey started in entertainment. It's where I started, obviously, personal coffee chefing, building stores on film lots. Where it evolved to was, and it's funny how life throws you obstacles that kind of curve like where you go, you know, and it's how you adapt and how you maneuver. And just the music industry, for example, how it's changed since Napster and streaming and Spotify and Apple Music and all of that, and how, you know, the revenue structures. And then with film, you have Netflix has now changed the revenue of how films make money. For us, we were doing incredible, built this huge, I want to say, empire within entertainment of coffee. And then we got hit with a writer's strike. In 2007, there was a union strike. It shut down the entire entertainment industry for 100 days. So at that time, for me, I had built a huge facility. I had a roastery, I had management, I had staff, I had a warehouse guy, forklifts, rents, stores. And that strike kind of put me in a different direction. For 100 days, employees wouldn't cross the picket lines at the film studio, so nobody would come into my stores. Our business dropped at our retail locations because they were entertainment. Films weren't in production, so we didn't. So after that, I had a bad taste about the entertainment industry. Kind of changed the direction of, you know, there was supposed to be another strike in a couple of years. Do I want to go through this again? And that's what kind of put me into the travel industry, where I'm going to use the cachet of who I've served, what I've done, and the credibility of that, and move into luxury hotels and restaurants. For me, I do affirmations. I would affirm like who I wanted to work with, what I wanted to do. And somehow, if it's in my subconscious or whatever, the doors opened for me, and I got in with a restaurant group. They had 4 restaurants at the time. This is back in 2008. And I got in with them. They gave me a shot. They had a basically an operation that was in the red, and it was a coffee operation. They asked me to look at it. I took a look at it. I got it within 90 days to break even. Another 90 days, I got it to profit. And they were like, "Whoa, this kid knows what he's doing. You know, can you come and look at our other operations?" Well, so I grew with them. And the next thing you know, I grew from 4 restaurants with them to they now have 123 restaurants and 23 hotels. So I don't do all of their portfolio because a lot of them were through acquisitions and they're under contract. But I was able to grow with them, and that got me started segueing from entertainment into the luxury sector.
Are you completely out of entertainment now, or is it basically, you know, it's more 90-10 now, or what's the ratio of what you're up to?
You know, it's probably about 90-10 because I've been doing entertainment for so long. At one point in my life, I still get calls. Just recently, I did a Nike commercial where they rented out all my vintage coffee equipment. They branded it with Nike. And then they paid me to come in and design a coffee operation. And then they hired me to do food styling for the shoot where I made Nike lattes. So I get hired by Netflix all the time for promotions. They do like latte art promotions where I'll do like something for a promo for the show. Or I've also been hired for commercials where I do coffee. You know, when someone does latte art in a scene, like that's a skill. The prop master can't pour a latte art, so they have to bring in a specialist. So I still get a lot of calls for that, quite a bit throughout the year. And then I still work for Dr. Phil. I do personal coffee stuff for him. I just worked for him last week. So I still do celebrity stuff once in a while, but it's not like it used to be. Cameron Diaz doesn't make movies anymore.
Right.
So she's kind of retired. Tom just did Top Gun 2, but he, you know, it's different now.
It's different now.
He doesn't have the big entourage he used to have.
And do you, so now basically it's everywhere. It's hotels. It's everything. You showed me earlier. We were doing some artwork. Obviously, you're doing the latte art, and you're doing different things. We tried some different brands, different coffees. We tried an espresso. We tried the pour over. You're doing so much fancy coffee. Are you just simply coffee at home? Or are you like, what's your gear at home? What are you working on at home?
Well, I actually have a pretty kick-ass coffee bar built into my house in my living room. So I pretty much eat, drink, and sleep coffee. I will tell you this. My dad drinks espresso and goes to sleep. My mom drinks decaf and stays up. And unfortunately, I got her genetics. So I really don't drink coffee after 2. But
except for the 17 we've had today.
Exactly.
That's hilarious.
But yeah, I am super sensitive to caffeine. So unfortunately, which you would think I'd have a tolerance at this point, but no.
And how we connected here was through our buddy Ray Legier from Korn, who was telling me about the brand, the coffee Korn, or sorry, Korn Koffee.
Sure.
Let me go that way with it. Korn Koffee. And you made them a brand. So they're out selling it. We've tried it out on tour, and they have Korn Koffee at all the shows, and they're selling it in merch. And how did that come about, and where are you going with it now? You trying to do this for more bands, more people? You've also got Machine Gun Kelly as well. So that's really cool and specialized.
It's a very interesting niche, to say the least. The way Korn came about was I was playing in a basketball league, and in the league, one of their managers was in the league with me, and we were friends for years. And then when this came about that they wanted to do a coffee thing, the manager called me and said, "Hey, you know, we're thinking of doing this. We know you're an expert in the coffee field." And it started with one meeting. I met with Monkey first. And we kind of built a relationship from there. And then I met with Ray, and then I met the rest of the band. And then me and Ray really connected. You know, he is very passionate about coffee, and we kind of share the same passion. And just, he's a great guy. They all are great guys. But that's basically how it came about. And then so what I did is I started to design a blend. And it wasn't like, oh, let's just slap their name on a blend. We did probably about 18, I call them drafts, where we create 18 different blends, and then we narrow it down to 9, and then we narrow it down to 6, and then 3, and then we went with the one that was the most popular of the 3. But it was a lot of tweaking. It was a lot of figuring out roasting temperatures. How dark do we want to go? How light? What is going to cater to the most people, you know, because and their fans and their following. And it was really a way for them to connect with their fans. It was really a connective device, and it just, you know, it's been a real hit, and the reviews have been amazing on it, which is great.
I've tasted it. It's great. It makes a really great espresso.
Yes.
You know, we've been trying that out. They're doing their drip backstage. Some of the Korn Koffee people that are coming by. The espresso we made out of it tasted really, really great. And Ray I don't think he had it in an espresso yet, so we had made it, and I'm traveling with a portable espresso maker, and so we gave it a go, and he really dug it. So it's cool that it can take various forms and various
it's good cold brew too. Really good cold brew.
I'm gonna have to try a cold brew. I haven't actually done the cold brew yet. I'm not a cold coffee guy. I know I'm missing out. Some of the guys that we're touring, we're gonna have to change that and try it out. That's really cool. So it's been really cool meeting those guys and their journey. And were they along for the ride? Did they taste every single thing? Were they, in LA? I think you mentioned that you're in Vegas, so we'll get to that. But were they there the whole time, or did you have to ship it out to them? What was the idea here?
No, I met with them over the course of I want to say like 6 months. I met with them quite a few times and kind of narrowed down the tastings. We would have these I would submit like I said, I would submit like 18 blends. Then we would do 9. I would keep meeting them, and it would get lower and lower until we got the right one. But it was over a period of time, and then They actually came to my facility in Vegas, and they actually got on the roaster. They saw how we sourced beans. They tried it. They did all the steps of roasting, and we kind of walked them through it, and it was a really cool experience, and they were super into it. So, but yeah, they were really receptive to it.
And you got Machine Gun Kelly as well?
Yeah, he's been more of a concept where the Korn's been a brand. So he's launching actually in October now, the 27 Club. It's going to be a themed coffee spot. It is going to be a bar as well. And so what it started with, I was introduced to him, I should say. And we met and we hit it off. And then we started playing around with different coffees. And then we designed, so for that, it was more of a concept, right, for the coffee store. So we were brought on to help design the coffee portion of the store, sourcing equipment, creating the blend. And actually, the blend we created for him was a huge hit, too. We sold out hours after releasing it at one of his music festivals, EST Fest. And again, huge, very receptive, positive reviews. Fans went crazy. This is kind of crazy. We had one bag left on a limited edition run, and a guy came and wanted it. They told me not to sell it. He said, "I will give you $100 for that bag of coffee." And the management said, "Go ahead, sell it." $100.
I wonder if he's actually made anything out of it at this point, or if it's sitting on his shelf as the $100 bag of coffee.
It's pretty awesome, but he paid cash. So
there you go. You're in Vegas now.
I'm in Vegas.
I got a lot of people in Vegas. Some of my good friends in this business live in Vegas, and I'm not sure they know that you're there, which they will now. And you may get a regular visit from, my buddies from Slash's band that all live there.
Awesome.
So I'm sure they're going to want to come by and test it out. What's going on in Vegas? That's where your roastery is now.
Yeah, so what happened was my mentor, who took me under his wing and who I apprenticed for he was a master roaster. In about 2013, he sold his roastery. He had retail stores. He sold his retail stores. He basically sold everything. He got divorced. Older gentleman, on a whim, he randomly moved to Vegas. And he came to me and said, "Jeremy, I'm starting a cold brew coffee company. I need you to come in and be my roaster." So I thought about it and I said, wow, this is my teacher. He's now going to be my equal. We're going to work together. What an experience. He built this beautiful state-of-the-art facility. So I gave him half my facility in Los Angeles. I took half his facility in Vegas. And together we had these two facilities. He started this cold brew business. It took off. He got into Whole Foods. And him and I got a large contract at the same time. And next thing you know, we outgrew our space. We had 7,000 square feet. We're on top of each other. So he said, "Hey, where we're at is a bunch of commissaries, like a bunch of warehouses." He said, you take the building next to us. I'll take the one on the other side. We'll break the walls down. We'll build this 21,000 square foot, beautiful state-of-the-art facility for roasting and cold brew. I take the lease. He then gets Trader Joe's. He then gets Sprouts. He gets Kroger. He gets Costco. Well, now he's out of money. And he needs to raise capital because now he's got all these orders. So what he did is he ended up selling that business to a hedge fund who came in and took it over, and they were able to fund it and grow it. And so we ended up separating from the hedge fund business and went into the facility next door. And that's basically how we ended up in Vegas, which is funny because I came with my friend / mentor, and he was out of the business at that point.
Crazy.
So, but they're great. The hedge fund's great people. We work with them. We do a lot of stuff for them, and so we had now two facilities, one in LA and one in Vegas, and we had to choose, and we love Vegas. We love the people there. The cost of living is low, and so employees have great, lifestyles, and, it's a great quality of life. And so that was a big thing for us too, is we want to have quality employees and good morale. And so Vegas was key for that. And the facility we built was state of the art, brand new. And so,
and your method of roasting is not necessarily totally unique to you, but you're one of only a few that are doing it. So let's walk through that quickly, and then we'll get out of here.
Okay, well, we coined the phrase cloud roasting. So basically what cloud roasting is it's basically roasting on a bed of air. Completely different than all the other roasters out there. All the other roasters are drum roasters, all the big guys. Basically, what does that mean? They're using a hot metal drum. There's heat applied to the metal drum. It's rotating around. The bean roasts as it hits the metal. So think of it as a frying pan, right? And you got the bean in the frying pan. It's only roasting when it hits the hot metal. With our process, we are lifting the bean off of the metal, enveloping it in air 100% of the time, so it's an even roast. The result of that is a clean, very bright, less acidic, no irritants, no, higher in antioxidants. Because what we're doing is we're not burning the shell of the coffee into the bean. We're actually blowing it off. So that's the chafe, is blowing off. And then, so that's part of the clean process. And then the result is, for us, a real deep taste. My first roaster I ever owned, I learned on an airbed roaster. Or a cloud roaster.
So it sounds to me it's almost like pardon my ignorance, but like popcorn.
Just like popcorn, like a hot air popcorn roaster, basically. So we have two of them. We got a full bagger and a half bagger, and basically I learned on an airbed roaster, and I also owned my first roaster I ever owned was a drum roaster. So I've used both roasting processes, and I am such a fan of taste for airbed roasting. One thing I want to point out is we have a company we did roasting for. They roast on a drum roaster. They submitted us the same formulation of their beans, and they asked us to roast for it because their roaster broke down one day. So we took their beans, and we roasted them on our roaster. They submitted them to their client. Their client came back and said, "Hey guys, the coffee's tasted better than it's ever tasted." So
I think you should put on your website, J. Gursey Coffee, stealing business for 20 years, because you've come into the movie business and took all the business, and you came in with the new method of roasting, and they changed the way that they like coffee.
It's really, I gotta tell you, Brent, it was the same exact beans, the same formulation, different roasting process. And so then the company, our buddy, had a problem. Hey, they really like the flavor of your roast. What do we do? Now we're doing all the roasting for them.
That's amazing.
But that's a perfect example of, again, same beans that were drum roasted being airbed roasted. And in blind taste tests, I'm telling you, airbed all the way.
And it's better for the environment, as you said. Better
for the environment. For example, and if you have roasters that listen to your podcast, on a drum roaster once a week, you have to tear down your stop roasting. You have to open up your ventilation. You have to clean out your, it's almost like a moss that builds up, which is the chaff, and that's how you get roaster fires. And that also blocks the flow of air coming out of the roaster. Ours is a clean burning roaster. You open up our ventilation, there's nothing there. Completely clean. We never have to shut down. We can roast 24 hours a day, nonstop, one roast after the other, because we have a continuous roaster. So that's another, bonus as well, besides for us, what we think is a stronger, like locked in flavor. And our roaster has actually been modified. We have variables that we can put in place. Everything's computerized, it's consistent. But we can roast to first crack. If we have like a single origin Ethiopian Yirgacheffe, we can roast it to just first crack and get the real flavor of the origin of the bean over, say, the roast. Or we can do blends, and roast to second crack or just past second crack. So we have all kinds of controls in place, and it's really, to me, a superior roasting process.
The average coffee drinker that doesn't study coffee, that is just out popping into, in Canada, Tim Hortons, popping into Tim Hortons, and down here, say Dunkin' Donuts, or they go to Starbucks or whatever. What are they getting? What are they getting for a roast?
They're getting drum roasted coffee.
They're getting drum roasted, and are they getting the first crack? Like, what are they getting over roasted because they ship in mass quality? Like, I've heard Starbucks kind of roast theirs a little differently, but to the average person listening to this right now, that is like, I don't know what he means. When they drink your coffee, they'll know what you mean. But just in general, to the average listener, What are they drinking?
So on average, they're probably drinking a medium to dark roast. So in regards to the chemistry of coffee, right, that there's first crack, there's second crack, there's endothermic, there's exothermic. So when you're roasting coffee, and I'm going to get real coffee nerdy here.
That's okay, because I feel like I'm on crack.
We're
being on the
applying
coffee.
heat. So we're applying heat from the outside in when you start the initial process of roasting. Then what happens is once you get first crack, the heat now comes from the inside out. So it's exothermic, there's endothermic, exothermic. And so then the process changes. So when you get to second crack, it's coming from the inside out. So, basically what that means, if you do only up to first crack, that's a lighter roast. It's a lot stronger in caffeine because the caffeine is in the shell of the shape of the coffee and it's on the bean still. It's and then you have companies like, I'm going to say Starbucks, who have blonde roasts and stuff as well, but tend to roast darker, and you're tasting more of the roast over the origin of the bean. Yeah. We tend to balance our roast. We do origin and balance and roast as a balance. So you're not tasting the roast, you're not tasting the bean. It's kind of right in the middle, which is a medium roast. So we also do breakfast blend, which is lighter. We do a darker roast, which is our dark noir. And then, but our most popular is our medium roast. We have Vintage Black Diamond, which is like a connoisseur's blend, very chocolatey. And then we have an Italian Reserve that's probably our most popular. So those are two medium roasts. Medium applies more to the masses when you have to decide, right? When you're creating a roast, are you appealing to the hipster? Are you to the coffee connoisseur, to the family? Who are you gearing your blends towards? And for us, we tend to go more towards the medium roast because it reaches a more mass audience. But it's a hard thing. It's just like when you create a mocha, right? Do you make it so it's tastes like baking chocolate, or do you make it so it's chocolatey? We look at it like, you don't go into 7-Eleven and get a Hershey bar and expect it not to taste like chocolate. If you're ordering a mocha, it should taste like chocolate. It should be sweet. It should be balanced, but it shouldn't taste like baking chocolate. That's kind of how we look at it.
How many cups you drink a day?
2.5.
2.5, not past 2 p.m.
Nothing after 2 p.m.
Except for today.
I did drink it today. Is it past 2 p.m. already?
Well, thanks, dude, for coming on here. Let me tell you something. We're building this thing out, and I'm having the best time learning about coffee, meeting coffee people from around the world. I know that you came all the way from LA, which, is not far in the big picture, but it is when you're trying to get from LA to Costa Mesa, which is, a long journey for you. And I really appreciate the time. I've had the benefit of having a couple of portable espresso makers given to me to give away. So for coming on, I'm going to give you one. It's called the Leverpresso.
Awesome.
It's espresso on the go. Try your bean out. I'm very curious to hear what you think of it, how it tastes out of yours, just for my own purpose. But we're going to send you one down. I guess we'll send you one down to Vegas, or I'll send you one to LA. You just let me know where you want it to go. But I can't thank you enough for being on here. What's next for you? Where can we find you online? And we'll finish up.
So you can find us at Gursey Coffee. That's Gursey coffee.com. You can find us on Instagram and Facebook at Gursey Coffee. And next for us, we're working on a casino resort out of Minnesota. We're putting together a coffee program for them. And then we're doing a Cuban cafe in Miami. And then we're launching a 27 Club for Machine Gun Kelly in Cleveland.
That sounds busy for you.
I'm definitely staying busy. I'm going to be the most caffeinated guy in the graveyard.
What a great story. Thanks for joining me, my friends, for part 2 of my interview with Jeremy. It meant a lot for you guys to come back and invest the time. Remember to like, share, tweet, tag, do whatever you got to do. Let's get it out there. Let's get it to more listeners. We're rising. We're rising in downloads. We're rising in listenership, in followers. It's really going great. I'm having a blast. You guys have been amazing, super supportive. Thanks, friends. Brenton On Tour. Out.